Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chennard. I'm here with Glenn Willis and Tyler Jones. We're recording on a Tuesday evening, one night in advance of the NBA draft. Which draft prospects do you want to talk about?
Uh,
Oh, wait, something happened.
we're down to one pick, so shorter podcast.
That's right. We don't have to talk about as many prospects now. All right, a deal was made. What do you think, Glenn?
Yeah, so it's funny. I put out a video on my Patreon. One of the things I said there was it's refreshing. Like they got Kristaps Porzingis at a good price. Like I said, old Hawks, they get 13, they get 22, they get a future first, in a deal like this where they go chasing someone. But I think the whole world knew Boston's up against that second apron, had to make a move, and I mean, we could talk about what Kristaps brings, what he might change in terms of what they have to do on defense and things like that. Tons of offensive value there, but for the price, like this is a great deal, for the Hawks, in my mind. And They haven't had a guy who could shoot like this at the five or the four, wherever you want to play him, since they had Gallo, right? And the league has changed so much since it feels like that was only like 4 years ago, I think. But the volume shooting is up even more than it was 4 years ago. So the value of having a guy at the position that can shoot it like him and space the floor, high release point, can shoot it from a full step behind the 3 point line. It's gonna create a lot more space that they never had this past season.
It's certainly interesting. Well, what did you think of the trade, Tyler?
Yeah, it's kind of what Auntie was talking about in his press conference, I guess yesterday, about optionality. The Hawks, the trades they made at the trade deadline broke up salaries that enabled them to maneuver and make moves uh, like this one. So, to me, I just think you get a. I mean, to me, like whoever starts doesn't start doesn't matter that much to me. Like the reality is this: the Hawks get to get potentially like over 85 to 90 plus minutes of Onyeka, Jalen, and Porzingis all on the floor, and it's such a mess. Like really, since in the Clint Capella era, the Hawks have been unable to play two centers next to each other. Finally, they can play two bigs on defense and get that value while also offensively giving nothing away. The fact that you can play Okongwu and Porzingis together means Okongwu's minutes go from he's splitting time with whoever this backup center is going to be or starting center is going to be to potentially pushing into 30 plus minutes range, which is like those minutes that were going to Terrence Mann at the power forward position, to David Roddy, to Dominic Barlow, even Reese Shea at the four. Like those are gone now. Like that's over with. And I just think it does that on one end, and also like on offense, the biggest thing that this trade does is the Hawks can play 5 out basketball for 48 minutes every night, pretty much, right? With Okongwu and Porzingis at the center position. That's just a weapon. Like it's just a supreme advantage that the Hawks have not had in the Trae Young era. Trae's finishing at the rim has been significantly down over the last couple seasons. Now there's no big he has to contend with. Like that, I think that's just going to be a mat, considering the strides that Congress made as a shooter. Like, and the fact that Porzingis is a good mismatch scorer. Like you put a smaller player on him, he's shooting over the top, and it's easy money. He's gotten a lot better as a post player. So like just overall, like the talent upgrade, the fit upgrade, the way I really think this is going to elevate Dyson and Jalen as drivers in ways that have blocked before in their Hawks tenure. So like it's just positives all around. And you gave up very little. Like you gave up a Terrence Mann who you probably were looking to upgrade this season, and a George Niang who you probably didn't want to play any minutes at the power forward position going forward. Like for as good as he was for the Hawks, we saw his defensive foibles there, and it became a question of did we really want to play him at the wing full time? Like how many minutes can we get away with that? Now that's not a question anymore. Now I will say uh, this does open up holes in the roster. They have to find shooting. They have to find somebody to replace what Niang brought on the offensive end still. Porzingis does some of that, but you probably want another like bomber from the 3-point line uh, to really balance out this roster. But this is a great start to the offseason.
Glenn, can they use Kristaps as a screener for Trae at the point of attack? What's this going to look like?
I mean, he's much more of a pick and pop guy. He's not a guy that tends to want to roll to the rim, and that makes sense because that's where his value is. He's not a very physical screener, and he's not the biggest guy, until he doesn't have the widest body. But he's sound, kind of in the area. And I think for the Hawks purposes, what they want is someone who can get in and out of the screen quickly and stress the defense with pace. They want to play quick through that action. So I think that works great. And the thing for me is I agree with Tyler. I think Anyaka and Kristaps can play together a good bit. And it forces the other team to decide, okay, which defender do we want to put on Anyaka, which defender we want to put on Kristaps. And the Hawks can, if they have a slower defender on Anyaka, they can play through Anyaka in the pick and roll and let him, kind of do his thing. And if they, put a lesser defender on Kristaps that struggles to defend in space, they can pick and pop Kristaps to the 3-point line. They both can short roll effectively. They both have good hands, good processing, good decision making. And so, last 3 years it's always been the center. Really, they run more guard stuff, more brush screen with guards and wings last year, and things like that. But to have options on the floor for that is great. And I'm curious, what you guys think, but he's in a contract year. I mean, kind of feels like they might need to start him to kind of make him feel like they're invested in him. And if he couldn't shoot at such a high level, I would say tough to do, but I don't think you start Onyeka, Kristaps, and Jalen and like necessarily play them like 8 minutes, a long stretch to start the game. But because of his shooting, if you want to show investment in him, try to get him to sign another contract, that might be a way to go. There are some challenges on defense we can get into there, but I think offensively it's going to just like both of you said, it's going to open up the floor, create more space. Dyson improved so much as a driver last year. Jalen having driving space is going to be huge as long as, especially if he can become more aggressive and physical at the rim. So on the offensive court, this is magical.
Yeah, that's I'm in agreement with that, Glenn. I don't know if the only reason why I say I'm not sure he starts is his health concerns. Like I severely doubt he's going to play back to backs. And Quinn likes to have routines, so I could see maybe he spot starts, maybe they go to that three big lineup, but I'm skeptical. I think this is more of a Gallinari situation. And if I'm the Hawks, I'm not terribly concerned if I don't sign Porzingis to a contract extension right away, if that makes sense. I want to see if this works, see how it should work, but things do happen during the season and we don't know. So like I think it'd be wise to just manage him potentially coming off the bench, or if you're going to start him, probably have a Kongu come off the bench. I don't like Jalen at the three. I just He has shown no wing skills. His shooting is very suspect at that position. Like you're just begging teams to put their center on Jalen with that lineup, and I'm like, well, we just killed our advantage with Porzingis. So like to me, I think either a Kongu starts or Jalen starts. Just depend like, and I would assume it's Jalen just because he's the more invested player, but here's what I'm going to say. Like maybe it's a hot take. I can totally see Okongwu being the better player uh, at the power forward position next to Porzingis than Jalen, primarily because I think Okongwu at the four freed up to play with a true elite rim protector behind him might do some real damage defensively in ways that we saw what Mo Gay could do. And I think Okongwu can do a lot of that Mo did um, on the defensive end to really protect Porzingis on that side of the floor, and then as well as like be a real advantage where you're playing with the real size and physicality and intensity. So we'll see with Jalen and Okongwu. It's not about like they could start Karis LeVert at the three. It's not about Risha starting or not starting. It's more about the role that I would meet as what I'm seeing, what the Hawks are trying to do, what they're trying to envision here. I think they consider Jalen a big, and that's where his advantages are. You playing minutes at the three, I just don't think you're getting value. That reminds me too much of John Collins, Clint Capella at the 5-4, if that makes sense. I want Jalen at the four, driving to the rim, running pick and rolls with Porzingis spaced out to the floor on offense primarily, and not Okongwu and Jalen fighting for that role next to Porzingis, if that makes sense, Glenn. Like it's less about the players. Like obviously your five best players are going to be Porzingis, Okongwu, and Jalen, Dyson, and Trae. But I just don't think the fit it works well enough, combined with they're going to have to manage Porzingis throughout the season. Like if they can get 60 games from Porzingis, it's a win. And I think that's probably the goal. He's not going to play back to backs. And we'll see what they come to agreement with in contract extensions. I just like the health thing with Porzingis is real. Like that's just three. If Porzingis were even like a Brandon Ingram type of injury risk, I think you start him and we're not having this conversation. But like Porzingis he has random injuries that really, really knock him out for months at a time. And I don't know if you want to, and to me, I just think like a good role for him would be in the DeAndre Hunter role, like where he's playing starter minutes, but you're managing him through the season just to keep everything level because you don't want to lose this type of talent, especially with if they don't acquire another backup center, power forward, or something. Like they're very thin. The roster needs a lot of work, but they're very thin right now at the big position.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a twofold thing, right? Like I just fully, in my opinion, I think Jalen and Onyeka are going to start. I know it's a contract year for Kristaps, but like you just look at what he's done over the course of his career. It's like a twofold trimming. Like first of all, he's basically a 50 game a season player at this point. Like that's just what he's done. He has that track record for years and years and years for the last, almost decade. And then even within that, he's only playing like 27, 28 minutes a game, sort of tops. So like if he's doing that, like there's no reason to have him playing like for minute one of the game. Like I think if you compress those minutes, you're just minimizing the risk of injury that way anyways. Like if you want him to finish the game, having him come into the game 6 minutes into the first quarter is perfectly fine.
And to back up your point, Kevin, Porzingis has only played more than 60 games in a season two,
Three
three
times.
times in his career.
Yep.
And he's had 2 seasons of 57 games. So like it's
Yep.
just that's just tough to be like, okay, we're gonna start play you 33 plus minutes a night at the center position. I don't see that happening with him. It's especially for a Hawks team that um, you know wants to establish probably a Okongwu as a real player in this league as well, considering how well he played to end the year. I'd be hard pressed to see him coming off the bench. Combined with it's the question of is Jalen or Porzingis considering their injury things. And again, like I said before, if Jalen was more of a wing type player, I'd have no problem playing him at the three, but he has not shown the shooting to me in his career to suggest that it's okay to play him and Dyson at the wing. Like that is, you are just begging teams to invert lineups and really bog down the offense in ways that I don't see the value. Like let's play. I say either go with one of Porzingis or Jalen and go from there. But that's where I'm leaning more so right now.
The Hawks, this trade leaves the Hawks sort of critically down on depth, and that kind of comes in a number of forms. But even getting a big, like you still need a third center. Like, how do the Hawks go about that? Are you looking for a contrast in styles? Are you trying to secure Larry Nance? Like, what do you think happens from here, Glenn, in terms of getting the backups back up?
Yeah, there's a couple ways you could go. One is they can lean way in an offense, and like Nance enables that, right? So Nance can kind of do the things that roughly that Porzingis can do, can space the floor, handle DHO, all that sort of stuff, and the Congo as well. But what they're missing really is a guy who like Porzingis can't deal with like Jokic and Zubac and the biggest guys in the league. And so if you want to go defense, you go get a really really big guy who can be center 2B, if you will. And in those games where you need him to play 20 minutes against those really physical big guys, you get that. So it'll be interesting to see which way they go in that sense. And maybe we'll know more 24 hours from now after maybe we can see who the Hawks have drafted with that 13th spot. They assuming they don't trade up or whatever and such. So but for me, they're building an offensive team. But and I know I acknowledge the offensive kind of constraint that might come with playing Kristaps and Yucca and Jalen together. On defense, that's a sick 3-3-5. you know, you keep Porzingis on the back line, Jalen can defend in space, and Yucca can defend in space. And like I said, I don't know what Quinn thinks. I mean, if Porzingis weren't a high level shooter, Dyson does make it complicated, for sure, offensively, sliding Jalen to the three. Um, but yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what they do. Defensively, they're going to have to accommodate some changes for
Yeah.
Porzingis, for sure.
Well, let's talk about that now. What has to change?
So Porzingis, like Okongwu good in space, Nance struggles in space, right? So if you bring him back, Porzingis has been more of a drop, and even in drop, he's not the most physical guy. He's not the strongest rebounder either. And so I think, in that sense, I think Porzingis plus Jalen minutes are important, to kind of mix in. But we've talked last season about how teams increasingly are not letting you send their centers up the floor. Houston would never let you get Sengun up the floor. Like they'll send Dylan Brooks up the floor with the big, and a lot of this started with Udoka in Boston when they would just park Robert Williams and their centers in a weak side corner, whatever shooter they put there. And so it's going to be interesting to see if Quinn kind of leverages some of those techniques that have become and patterns that have become popular across the league. Is he's just going to say, Kristaps, you're in the weak side corner. I don't care who they put over there, right? That's where you are. If we're bringing someone up the floor, that's Jalen. I don't care if it's the center. Jalen's following the center up the floor, right? To kind of create that additional athletic defender at the point of attack, say with a Congo. And the Hawks sometimes last year that ran a lot of 1-3-5 switching. I don't think you can really do that with Kristaps either. And so I think that what you get on offense is worthwhile, but they might have to be a little bit more versatile scheme wise on defense, depending upon which lineup they have the floor at any point in the game.
It's interesting. When I was last on Locked On Hawks with Brad Rowland, Kevin's sworn enemy. I talked about Jalen's Jalen's overall game, or maybe I said this on David Lee. I can't remember. David Lee's podcast. They all blend together, but like I was really critical of Jalen's defense in particular because I felt like he left, even though he's very good, and you could make an argument he was the most impactful defender last year. And when they lost him, it was a massive blow because they had nobody behind it that could do what Jalen did on defense. They couldn't build lineups that could get stops and score at the same time. Like it was a trade off for one or the other without Jalen being that connector at the four. And now with Porzingis, I think it's really imperative that Jalen steps it up on defense, where it's not just good enough to be a good defender. He has to fight to be the best defensive player in basketball if he wants to make it work with Porzingis on defense. Like because Porzingis's flaws defensively are real. Like he brings great rim protection. That's amazing. Everything else is below average. I would argue with Porzingis. He's a horrific mover in space. He's a bad pick and roll defender if he's up the floor. Like there's a lot that Porzingis does not do well. So it's going to really require Jalen to be on his P's and Q's to take away what the offenses are trying to do to get Porzingis in space, to get in space in particular. So those are going to be things where Jalen's going to have to take more ownership defensively in ways that I have not seen consistently throughout his career. I've seen it in spurts. I thought when they Celtics and the okay, I hadn't seen like he was really calling some stuff out. He was scram switching Trae constantly. Like but he has to bring that every night. He's got to play with that level of focus and intensity every night. That's the missing piece with Jalen that's lacking. That will take him from just being a good NBA player to a perennial all-star caliber player is his defense because that's what the Hawks need. If they want to be title contenders, they need Jalen to take that next step because I'm going to be honest, I trust Okongwu to bring it, the focus and the intensity level every night more than I do Jalen right now. Like it's just from what I saw during these last couple, the tail end of the season when Okongwu really got empowered, he was bringing it every night on both ends in ways that I don't see consistently with Jalen, even though I think he's the more talented player. So I think Porzingis is really going to stretch Jalen's like talent to its limit, and I think he has an opportunity to really shine. But he's got to want to take ownership there in ways that I haven't seen consistently from him. Like he should want to be the Draymond Green on defense. Like he should want that. He has the talent to do that. He can. He's a good rim protector. He's great in space. I've seen him kill possessions before multiple times when he's locked in. But they need that more consistently from him next season, especially with Porzingis on the team.
Let's go back to the depth for a minute. Like I like this trade. It sounds like you're both pretty enthusiastic about it. But beyond the starting five, now they're suddenly very thin. Like it seems like the Hawks were probably shopping man's contract. They wanted to get off of that. So if they weren't able to do that and they brought back Man, he's a guy who's going to play 75 games. Niang is going to, would have been a guy who would play 75 guys. Now 75 games. Now the bench is super short. Like what do you think are the next steps apart from the third center, like with regard to Karis LeVert, maybe getting a rotation worthy player at 13? Other moves, like what needs to happen next for the Hawks to have a passable bench next season?
I just want to say with their lottery pick, they should just take best player available and not worry about rotation because in all likelihood that player will probably not be in the rotation regardless of what else the Hawks do. I want to start there. Re-signing Karis LeVert became just more important. Like that would potentially give the Hawks 7 starter caliber players on the roster, which is massive. Use the trade, the TPE that they have, the 25 million trade player exception that they currently still have, whether it's taking a guy in or in a sign and trade before it expires. I think that's important just to fill out the depth. I think they should honestly, more than anything else, prioritize just getting more talented players. Like, and, uh, third big is important, but I kind of trust what Mo Gay did to end this season. Like if I have to go with Mo Gay as my third center, I'm comfortable. It's less about him, the player, and more about the injury thing. To your point, Kevin. So like I, I trust him. So I'm not prioritizing third center over backup point guard and wing depth because they need to get some more wings. Like it's Shea and Dyson. Like so hopefully they can get Levert back, so that makes three wings, but they probably need a couple more to fill out the roster.
Yeah, and part of it is, what do you think of Eat? Like, is he part of your nine automatically, or are you looking to get another veteran to come in and Veet becomes your 10th guy and doesn't play all the time, so it's going to be interesting. I think this free agency, even though it's a mediocre free agency class, the second apron is causing like ripple like dominoes to fall across the league on what teams have to do to maneuver to stay from other things. So sign and trade obviously a possibility. They have more than that one TP. They have a couple other TPs as well.
Hmm.
So if they want to go to for like a $10 million guy, they got a $13 million, I think, TP that they can fit that guy into. And so I do think they need more depth. And I think that for me, I think they need another wing that can really defend. I think that's another thing that they need to add there for sure. Someone who can, when Dyson's off the floor, can be the main guy defending the other team's, best guy. That guy is not on this roster right now. Maybe a year from now, is Shea growing into a role? I don't think we're ready for that this year. And then the backup point guard position is something that, um, you know, I love Kobe, the person. I love what he brought to the league, but you can't, another guy that, you worried about that injury track record, and it hurt them this year. I mean, it worked out well for Dyson because Dyson got a ton of reps on ball this year. That's going to serve him well. But if the Hawks are like, the East is wide open, Dyson can't be the backup point guard next year. In my view, they got to go get a guy. So for me, backup center, really good wing defender, backup point guard, and then you got Veet, as your 10th guy. I think that's the way that they need to kind of continue to kind of work on the roster.
That's interesting, Glenn. You think they need because to me, I think they're good with center, like between Okongwu and Porzingis. I understand, we talked about the injury risk, but like I think that's you when you trade for Porzingis, you have to take on the risk, right? And so, like to me, to maximize what you're doing with Porzingis, I think it's okay to like allocate your resources elsewhere from the big man room, and like that be the last thing that you do, not the first thing, if that makes sense. Like I think what you said about another point of attack defender that can swap in for Dyson Daniels, I think that's more important to me. I think that's way more
I think
important.
that, yeah, for me, that's first.
Yeah, yeah.
And but for me, if Kristaps is not going to play 22 games, 25 games a year, you got to have a rotation worthy guy that's your third guy. So
Yes,
now, can you get that guy on the minimum? Can you get a guy who tell him you're only playing 30 games this year? Maybe so, but I definitely think that wing defender is number one for me.
yeah. It just primarily because I could just remember stretches of games where Dyson goes off the bench. I mean, Dyson goes to the bench, and it's just like nobody can stay in front of the guy in front. Now that could potentially be Kobe Buffkin. He's shown stretches, but Kobe to me has to earn those minutes. Like he's not going to be given playing time. I'm still a believer, but he's got to earn his playing time next season. So like it's good. Like Kobe's good, like 11th, 12th, 13th man depth. V Krejci, I want V Krejci in the guard room, not the wing room, if that
Yep.
makes sense.
Yep.
I don't want him playing wings. I just think he's too light, too frail, not strong enough to man that position. Where at the guard, he has real size advantages that he can take that on both ends really helps this team. So like to me, that's where I'm envisioning this team. So that's where we're like, yeah, yeah, get that backup. You know, you want to probably bring Levert back, but you also want to add to Levert and get like, in the rumor mill is Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who I think would be a perfect fit to what the Hawks are doing right now, how the Hawks want to play, the positions he's able to play as a wing guard type player, good shooter. Like that's the type of player I'm prioritizing and then working from there. Can I get a backup point guard? Can I get a bigger center who doesn't have to play every game? So he's probably going to be an older center. Like, would Brooke Lopez like to come play for the Hawks? Like, that's like be like, hey, Brooke, you're not going to play every game, but we're trying to manage Porzingis. Like, what's your interest level at the, mini mid level or something like that? So that's just how I'm envisioning. But just overall, I just want to, harp on this. Like, this raises the Hawks ceiling and floor so much. This move, like, uh, for all of Porzingis' flaws as players, and we've talked about that a little bit. The shooting he's going to provide is massive. So many, uh, bigs can't play in the paint defensively with Porzingis on the floor. Like they just can't. He's going to shoot you out of the game. And so, like to me, that weapon, I think can really transform this Hawks team in ways that uh, they could potentially get into contender status. Like I actually believe that, depending on the rest of the moves they make, and I think Porzingis fills a gap that they've been missing in the Quinn era. Quinn has wanted this type of player basically since he signed on to the team, and I think Trae has wanted to play with this type of player for the last couple of seasons now, and I think this is going to be very good for everybody involved. And yeah, like I can't wait to see what they do for the rest of the offseason. Like this is exciting.
Yeah, I'm with Glenn. I think Tyler kind of said the same thing, but when you get down to it, yeah, it's really that backup defender that's the backup wing defender that's key because, like Tyler said, if I'm counting Veet as sort of middle to deep bench, he's really got to be a guard. That's what he is. So that
Yeah,
that
and if
makes
you're
sense.
gonna
You want that stout defender so that you can use him in his optimal role.
if you have that, you can play Veet and Dyson next to that big defender in the second unit,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Veet's such an awesome processor, great passer, good handle. He does all that sort of stuff, but they kept having to slide him, like Tyler was saying, to a defensive role that really is more than what he can handle. So they need to fix that as they continue to work on the roster here in the offseason.
And I want to also add like this Porzingis, because we haven't talked about Ricochet a little. Like I think this helps Ricochet a lot, on really particularly on offense, but I also think it helps Ricochet on defense a bit more, because what Porzingis allows you to do defensively is consistently play big, and so we're not asking Ricochet to play at the forwards positions. He's guarding smaller basketball players who are probably not going to be able to physically go through him. Like how many times did we see last year? Hawks were tasking Ricochet with guarding bigger forwards that could just put one shoulder into him and knock him back like 2 feet and take away all the good stuff he did. Now you get Ricochet guarding more guard type players. That could be a real weapon for this team defensively as well. Like just another boon to mitigate the fact that Porzingis again does have his flaws defensively, but his rim protection is real, and it's going to allow the Hawks to play tighter up the floor. That their guard, forward, wing defenders are all going to play tighter up the floor and take some stuff away that they haven't been able to in years past, pretty much since Capella, kind of exited his prime the last 2 seasons. So I think there's a lot to gain here, for a lot of players. Like Jalen's going to thrive, I think, offensively with Porzingis' spacing. I think Okongwu, just the fact Okongwu finally is able to play more than 27 minutes a game because he's not locked to one position. Because he has somebody he can play with a Porzingis, he can play with a Moge, he can play with a Jalen Johnson. Like that's so massive. And furthermore, you're not pairing Okongwu next to a Terrence Mann or a Zachary Ricochet as your biggest players on the floor. Like there's so many additive things just because of Porzingis' size and skill level that's going to unlock a lot for the Hawks this upcoming season.
Maybe to finish, Glenn, how does this move impact Trae? Like what changes for Trae?
Harder to double him, right? You got, with Capella on the floor, easy to double him because Capella can't short roll. Now you probably have done games where they play Onyeka or Kristaps on for at any point across the 48 minutes, and both those guys can short roll. And then Ricochet was doing more of that last year too. Dyson was awesome in the short roll last year. So you just have more guys. Whether you want to put a big into that action, a wing into that action, a guard in action, whatever you want to do. It's just creating more layers to their offense. So you double Trae, they got guys who can handle, pass, shoot, process, make the right play more than they had previously. So I think it just opens up a lot more 4-on-3 attacks than they had the capability to do last year at times, depending on lineup.
And Tyler, like, what do you expect the Hawks to do if teams try to guard Porzingis with a small? Like if they they insist, is it just a matter of shooting? Are they going to do something different? Do you just kind of use Porzingis as a decoy and run the action somewhere else?
Yeah, they might do some decoy stuff primarily, but I think you're going to see some Porzingis post ups. Like you're going to see him post up smaller players. It's just how is he on the move or not? Like that's going to be, and I think the Hawks offense encourages him moving to spots on the floor instead of just a straight post up. So that's going to be a boon.
All
Love
right,
it.
on to the draft.
On to the draft.
Talk to you tomorrow night, I guess.
Yeah.
Good night, Bob.
Good
Bye,
night,
Bob.
Bob.